Are you ready for the word?
Yes, sir.
Good. Go to 1 Kings 18 and Mark chapter 3. When I look into the Bible and then look into the world in which we live, oftentimes I see patterns. Patterns of behavior and patterns of repercussions. I'm not the only one. Paul did too. When talking to the Corinthians about issues they were facing, he made reference to the Exodus, and he said this to them: "Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinks he stand take heed lest he fall." Here's what, if you go read the context of that in 1 Corinthians 10, here's what Paul was saying to the Corinthians. He said, "I see you lusting after evil things the same way the children of Israel did. I see you committing idolatry and fornicating with false gods the same way they did. I see you tempting and testing the Messiah the same way they tempted and tested Yahweh. And I see you murmuring the same way they did. And I'm pleading with you to not turn a blind eye to the consequences that they suffered as a result of the actions they committed." So he saw a pattern, and he revealed it to them and said, listen, if you do the same things they did, you're going to get the same things they got. I can assure you, Paul was saying, that you'll have the same outcome. So Paul also saw patterns of behavior and patterns of repercussions. The last time I spoke about such patterns, I talked about how important it was for us to trust the leadership of President Trump. I spoke of how the children of Israel did not appreciate Moses until he was dead. And then they mourned for 3 months. While he was alive, they questioned his every move and his every motive, and were sometimes just a thorn in his side. Now, when that message got posted to YouTube, the trollers attacked me for daring to compare Trump to Moses, which showed they didn't listen to what I said. I wasn't comparing Trump to Moses. I was comparing most Americans to the children of Israel. People too blind to see that Yahweh has allowed us to have a man who is seeking with every fiber of his being to lead us out of bondage and into liberty. The comparison was between the people and us. Back in 2016, I saw a pattern between the illegitimate son of Gideon, who took his place as the illegitimate leader of the nation, and how that the pattern that was shown to us there in the book of Judges warns us about the tactics that wicked people will use to rise to places of authority, and how the wicked actually begin to take places of authority. Well, another pattern comes to mind today as I think about some of the comments that I'm hearing as we prepare for an election that's coming up in 4 days. Primarily that comment is this one. I'm hearing a lot, people saying things such as, "I'm not going to vote because the lesser of two evils is still evil." To vote either way is to vote for the lesser of two evils, and I'm not going to do it, I hear people say. And that sounds spiritual. That sounds like it comes from the heart of someone who has strong convictions and moral uprightness. But I think if we're honest, when we compare that statement to what's written in the Bible, we'll first of all see that that sentiment is not new, and second, we'll see that this sentiment is never something that Yahweh applauds or praises. Before we go to our text in 1 Kings 18, let me show you a passage in Mark 3 that illustrates how wicked it is to be silent in times that demand a voice. Verse 1. "And Yeshua entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand. And they watched him whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him." You see, in their eyes, it was breaking the law to heal on the Sabbath. This was based on their own made-up doctrines, not something that came out of Torah. It was based on the doctrines taught by the Pharisees based on the oral law, which was held by the Pharisees in high regard as opposed to what was written in Torah. And Yeshua said unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. That is, stand up and come here. And he said unto them, the people in the synagogue, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days or to do evil? To save life or to kill? But they held their peace. Two simple questions. Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath? Is it lawful to save life on the Sabbath? How hard are those questions? Shouldn't be hard at all. And the context is clear. Yeshua is not trying to lure them into a trap. He made it very clear what he's talking about. He had the man stand up and come forward. So he's not luring them with some ambiguous question that might trap them into saying something they ought not to say. He's asking a simple question, which is this: is it lawful for this man to be healed on the Sabbath day? And their answer was not a word. They held their peace. Or I could say it this way: they refused to vote. Why? Did they see it as having to choose between the lesser of two evils? Was it that in their minds that they did not think you should do evil on the Sabbath, but they also did not think you should heal on the Sabbath? Is that what they're thinking? Well, you shouldn't do evil on the Sabbath, but neither should you heal on the Sabbath. So if you're making us choose between those two, you're making us choose between the lesser of two evils, and we're not going to vote. I know from Revelation chapter 3 that Yeshua would have preferred they voiced an opinion even if it were wrong. Yeshua said, I wish you were hot or cold, but because you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. Notice his response to them. I'm not having to wonder how he felt about their silence. He tells us, or it is told to us how he felt. Verse 5, and when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said unto the man, stretch forth your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. So Yeshua did not hide his disgust. You could tell just by looking at him, and by the way he looked at them, he was infuriated with their response. You didn't have to wonder, well, I wonder what he thought about that. You could tell by looking at him. And you could tell by the way he looked at them, he didn't like it at all. And you could also tell that their apathy grieved his heart. Verse 6 says, the Pharisees went forth and straightway immediately took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. Inside this synagogue are dozens, perhaps hundreds of people. Before them stood the Pharisees and their agenda, and Yeshua with the agenda of Yahweh. Yeshua asked the people inside that synagogue to vote yea or nay on healing. They could not and they would not. They held their peace, and their silence empowered the Pharisees even more to seek the death of Yeshua. Do you see that? Here the Pharisees are trying to control the people in that synagogue. Here Yeshua is trying to teach them in the ways of Torah. He's trying to break them free from the bondage they're in to this oral law with a simple question: isn't it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? They held their peace, which empowered the Pharisees to say, you know what? These folks are with us. And they sought the death of the Messiah. There is a time to be silent. There is a time to hold your peace. But this election is not one of those times. And those who are silent will not find the approval of Yahweh or Yeshua for their silence. So let's go to our text for this morning. 1 Kings 18. First of all, I guess before we look at 18, we need to back up to chapter 16 and get some background information about the situation we're going to be reading about. Ahab has become the king of Israel, a name you're very familiar with. Let's take a brief look at what the Bible says about Ahab. 1 Kings 16:29, and in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Ahab the son of Omri to reign over Israel. And Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel and Samaria 22 years. That was 22 years too long. And Ahab the son of Omri did evil in the sight of Yahweh above all that were before him. What a statement. Go back and read about the ones that were before him. Some of them were very wicked, but he did evil above them. Verse 31, it came to pass, as it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. The Zidonians are a part of the hybrids from the land of Canaan, whose religions come from Samaria, where fallen angels are worshipped as gods, Baal being one of them. He reared up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Samaria. And Ahab made a grove, that is, an Ashtaroth, for the worship of Ishtar. And Ahab did more to provoke Yahweh Elohim of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel that were before him. Ahab was a wicked man, driven to greater depths of wickedness by his wife Jezebel. You can read a comment about him made by Elijah over in chapter 21, verse 20. It says this, Ahab said to Elijah, have you found me, O my enemy? And he answered, I have found you because you have sold yourself to work evil in the sight of Yahweh. Listen to that comment from the prophet. He said to this king, you have sold yourself to work evil in the sight of Yahweh. Here is a king, a politician, who sold himself. The evil things that he did, the prophet tells us he did because he had sold himself to do them. Notice it doesn't say he sold himself to the devil or sold himself to Satan. It says that he had sold himself. The only explanation for the evil and wicked and horrible actions of politicians is that they sell themselves. The wickedness they promote because they're paid to promote it. Ahab's a wicked king with a wicked wife who's beholden to people more wicked than he is because he sold himself to the highest bidder. So understand that about Ahab before we move on. We're going to look now in 1 Kings 17. El means the Almighty One. Yah means Yahweh. So his name means the Almighty Yahweh. It ought not to be altered. Elijah. So listen to this. It might sound weird to our ears, but we're going to practice using the names as they're meant to be pronounced. Verse 1, and Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. You know what? When that prophet stood before Ahab and uttered those words, I bet you Ahab thought nothing of them. Yep. Yeah, right. You know? But then he went 3 months without rain. And then 6 months. And it turned into a year. And then a year and a half. Things start dying. Brooks and rivers and creeks start drying up. There's not only no way to feed yourself, there's no way to feed your animals. They have no pasture land. Those words in the months and years to come would echo into his ears, where Elijah said to him, it shall not rain but according to my word. Or in other words, it's not going to rain again till I say so. And Ahab therefore went on a massive manhunt to find him. Yahweh had hid him for a while down by a brook where he was fed daily by ravens bringing him his food. And he stayed there till that brook dried up. And then Yahweh sent him to a widow in Zarephath. And that widow sustained him. And then we're going to pick up in chapter 18. After 3 years of no rain, Yahweh speaks to Elijah. Let's pick up in verse 1. It came to pass after many days that the word of Yahweh came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go show yourself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared Yahweh greatly, for it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of Yahweh, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. He did something. Verse 5, Ahab said to Obadiah, Go into the land, into all the fountains of water, and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we lose not all the beast. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah met him, and he knew him, and fell on his face, and said, Are you that my Lord Elijah? And he answered him, I am. Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he, Obadiah, said, What have I sinned that you would deliver your servant unto the hand of Ahab to slay me? As Yahweh your Elohim lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent to seek you. He's been looking for you for 3 years, buddy. And when they said he is not here, or when he is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. It was dangerous to tell him that you weren't there. Verse 11, And now you say, Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. It'll come to pass as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of Yahweh will carry thee whither I know not. And so when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he'll slay me. But I, your servant, fear Yahweh from my youth. Was it not told my Lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of Yahweh? How I hid 100 men of Yahweh's prophets by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water? And now you say, Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. Legitimate concern. And Elijah said, As Yahweh of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said unto him, Are you he that troubles Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house, in that you have forsaken the commandments of Yahweh, and you have followed Baalim. So I want to stop here. We're going to read the rest of this story, but I want to stop here and make a point before we go on. Notice what Ahab accused Elijah of doing. What did he accuse him of doing? Causing trouble. Ahab, a man more wicked than any king who had ever preceded him, a man who had sold himself to do wickedly, a man who worshiped Baal and Ishtar, and whose wife killed any man who was a prophet of Yahweh, a man who had forsaken all Torah commandments. This man is accusing Elijah, or Elijah, there it is, Elijah, of being a troublemaker. I'm astounded, absolutely astounded by those who sincerely believe that President Trump is the one who's troubled America.
Too.
The Democrats have sold themselves to do wickedly. The rhinos have sold themselves to do wickedly. They voted time and again to commit murder of children inside the womb. They have promoted homosexuality, transgenderism, and pedophilia. They seek to destroy the Constitution. They seek to set up socialism. They sell us out to the Ukrainians, to the Russians, to the Chinese. They sell nuclear weapons and secrets to our enemies. They promote the defunding of police, the weakening of our military. They promote illegal immigration. They promote fraudulent voting. They promote rioting in the streets and the destruction of privately owned businesses, and then accuse Trump of being the one causing trouble. Him and his supporters. The only reason they make these accusations is because someone is finally standing up to their wicked ways. Just as Elijah stood up against Ahab, Donald Trump has stood up against the establishment, against the mainstream media, and against corruption where he's found it. And that's made him the enemy of the wicked. And you can judge a lot about a man by those who are his enemies.
That's true.
If Pelosi and Schumer and Hillary and Obama, if Tom Hanks and Oprah and Behart and Taylor Swift oppose President Trump, that should be a neon sign saying to you, you ought to stand with him.
True.
If so-called pro-choicers and open advocates of socialism oppose Trump, if LGBTQ and NAMBLA oppose Trump, what greater motivation does one need to understand that we should be standing with him?
That's true.
Trump is accused of being too harsh. Oh, I wish he would speak nicer. I wish he wouldn't be so mean. Are you serious? Let me say three things about that comment that we've been hearing for 5 years. Oh, he needs to be nicer. Let me say three things about that. Number one, listen to his speeches when he's talking to the American people. He loves this country and the principles upon which it was founded. He speaks with passion and respect for this country and those who make it up. His speeches are full of encouragement, full of hope, full of patriotism, full of love. He's articulate and his words embody what America is meant to be. When he's talking to America, there is no one filled with more compassion and energy and patriotism than he is. So number two, I would say, the only time he's harsh is when he is being falsely accused and attacked from every side by those who will stop at nothing to stop him. It's been proven time and time again that the Democrats and deep state have lied and have broken the law in their attempts to take him out of office. They have fought against him in unlawful and unmerciful ways from the day he announced that he would run. And the media have been co-conspirators in this coup, or this coup attempt. So how, pray tell, do you expect him to respond to these vicious attacks? In niceties? I think he's responding the only way he can and should. They falsely accuse him of troubling America. He is simply using tone and verbiage to make it clear that they are the ones who are causing trouble in America. I found this on social media months ago. I do not know to whom the credit goes, but I found the words to ring true. So allow me to share this quote. Many times we think someone is ranting, but they're actually speaking with conviction. And everyone has forgotten the sound of real passion. We're so afraid of absolutes and a strong gut and digging in your heels that we dismiss the powerful voice of a lonely fighter. Listen for quiet strength, for humble confidence. It's not often someone will stand for what is right, what is true, and what is pure. The truth is blinding in a dark world. The third thing I would say about him being harsh is this. When you examine to see someone who is being used by Yahweh, do you go out expecting to see a reed shaken in the wind? That was the question Yeshua asked concerning those who doubted the authenticity of John the Baptizer. Why don't you turn there and let's look at that, and then we'll come back to 1 Kings 18. Luke chapter 7. Look at verse 24. And when the messengers of John were departed, he began to speak unto the people concerning John. What went ye out into the wilderness for to see? A reed shaken with the wind? Did you expect this messenger of Yahweh to be weak, soft, bendable, pliable? Is that what you expected? Verse 25. But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they which are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately are in kings' courts. Messiah said, those who speak softly and tell you what you want to hear while wearing fine suits are in the king's court. Or we could say it this way, they've sold themselves.
Right.
They no longer care about you and will gladly tell you the lies that you want to hear in the tone that you want to hear them.
True.
But what went ye out for to see? Verse 26. A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and much more than a prophet. So I would ask this question about Trump and the position that he's had to take in this country. For decades, this nation cried out for someone to stand up against the corruption we see in government. We have prayed for Yahweh to raise up someone who couldn't be bought and couldn't be bullied.
Right.
Because that's what's happened to those who have gained office. They've either been bought or bullied. We prayed for somebody that couldn't. Trump uniquely can't be bought and he can't be bullied.
Right.
And now that Yahweh raised him up, we dare criticize him because he doesn't play nice? That's absurd. Look through your Bible and find me one prophet who was ever known because of his niceness. That his most outstanding quality was how kind he was. Exactly. Oh, I just love Elijah. He just seemed to be the sweetest prophet ever. Yeah, right. You don't know Elijah. Moses was the most meek man on the earth. But he was not weak, nor can it be said of him that he was always nice. He served Yahweh with all of his heart, and those who did not serve Yahweh faced the wrath of Moses and Yahweh. He led the children of Israel to fight against and destroy those who illegally possessed land that did not belong to them. He led the children of Israel to fight against and destroy all who dared to ambush them in their journeys. He was not a reed shaken in the wind. Neither was Elijah, neither was Elisha, nor Jeremiah, nor Amos, nor Ezekiel, nor Joshua, or Caleb, or any other man who ever served Yahweh. Look at Yeshua himself. Look at Peter and James and John. Look at Paul. None of them were reeds shaken in the wind. You will never find a man who could be described as a reed shaken in the wind being used by Yahweh. It's worth taking the time to look at one illustration. Go to Acts 13. Acts 13, look in verse 6. And when they, the they being Paul or Saul and Barnabas, when they had gone through the isle unto Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew whose name was Bar-Jesus, which was with the deputy of the country, Sergius Paulus, a prudent man, who called for Barnabas and Saul and desired to hear the word of Yahweh. But Elymas, the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, that is, Elymas the wise man. The writer Luke is letting you know that he didn't consider him a wise man, but that was the interpretation of his name. Withstood them, seeking to turn away the deputy from the faith. Now, why would he do that? Because it was going to cost him his livelihood, his place, his position, his prestige, his power. He wasn't doing it because he was concerned about the well-being of Sergius Paulus. He was doing it because he had sold himself. Then Saul, who is called Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, set his eyes on him and said, well, I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree about this one. No. Saul said, "Oh, full of subtlety and all mischief, you child of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease to pervert the right ways of Yahweh? You deceiving piece of trickery, who is hiding behind your easygoing personality and your soft-spokenness." That's what the word mischief means. You're hiding behind an easygoing personality and speaking so softly and smiling while you do it. You are nothing but a deceiving piece of trickery. You're an enemy of everything that's righteous, and you pervert the ways of Yahweh. And now, behold, the hand of Yahweh is upon you, and you shall be blind, not seeing the sun for a season. Well, should Paul have been more compassionate and sweeter and used a less harsh tone and less hurtful words? 1,000 times no. Those who hide behind soft-spoken words are the ones you should be suspicious of, not the one who dares to speak the truth.
Amen.
You stand two men up in front of me and ask me to judge which one is used by Yahweh. And all I can do is judge by what I see. But you stand two men up in front of me and say one of these is being used mightily by Yahweh and the other is serving for personal gain. And the two men you stand up in front of me, one of them is immaculately dressed, always smiling, never saying anything controversial, always soft-spoken Joel Osteen. And opposite of him, you stand up that one whom you say is too harsh, Donald Trump. Without hesitation, I will declare that the one Yahweh is using is Donald Trump.
Amen.
I'm not saying he's a prophet. I'm not saying he's a preacher of any kind. I'm simply saying that where there's a need of Yahweh, there's need of a man. And America needs Yahweh, and Trump has stepped up and is being used by him. What went you out to see? A reed shaking in the wind? He is not that. It was a battle that he didn't have to take on, but I'm thankful that he did. If he was a reed shaking in the wind, they would have destroyed him 4.5 years ago.
That's true.
Yep.
He's still standing today because of his own internal character and principles and because the hand of Yahweh has sustained him. Back to 1 Kings 18. Verse 19. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel. And the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If Yahweh be Elohim, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And there it is again. And the people answered him not a word. The same thing we saw earlier when Yeshua healed the man with the withered hand. The people would not answer. The people refused to vote. The proposition put on the ballot was not a difficult proposition. If Yahweh be the true Elohim, follow him. If Baal, follow him. That's a simple proposition put on the ballot, and they would not vote. Did it seem like they were having to choose between the lesser of two evils? That is, if they sided with Elijah, they faced Ahab and Jezebel's wrath. If they sided with Ahab, and Yahweh actually was the true Elohim, what problems would that cause for them? So they thought we'll just stay neutral. Because either way we vote, we're going to get in trouble. Either way we vote, we're voting for the lesser of two evils to come upon us. So what they did is chose to be silent. Elijah's anger toward them is that they halt or jump between two opinions. They say they love Yahweh and want to serve him, but there's no actions to prove it because they also turn from him to serve Baal. They jump back and forth between the two. And the prophet said to them, it's time to choose a side. And when it came time to choose a side, they froze. That's exactly how I view those who are refusing to vote on the grounds that they think the only choice they have is the lesser of two evils. They're trying to stay neutral in a day when it's time to choose sides.
Amen.
The distinctions between the two have never been more clear to me. And it's time to choose a side. One side is for gun control, abortion, defunding of police, weakening the military, LGBTQT, pedophilia, population reduction, and one world government, higher taxes, the elimination of the use of fossil fuels, more government control and ownership, and socialism. The other side is for the protection of the First and Second Amendment, the rule by the Constitution, protecting citizens from riots and rioters and establishing the rule of law, strong military, lower taxes, private property, being oil dependent so that citizens can pay $1.80 for a gallon instead of $5.80 for a gallon for gas like we were doing during the Obama era. Being oil dependent so that you can afford to heat your home in the winter. Being pro-family and pro-life. If you see that as a choice between evil and the lesser of two evils, then I think you're very confused. If you see the choice between Tuberville and Jones as a choice between evil and the lesser of two evils, I think you're very confused. If you see the choice between Biden and Trump as a choice between evil and the lesser of two evils, and you base that on Trump's harsh tones, you're straining at gnats and swallowing camels.
That's true.
There used to be two parties in this country who loved and respected this country and simply disagreed about a few things on how it should be run. That's not so anymore.
That's true.
The Democratic Party has sold themselves to work evil. They make no bones about it anymore. They don't try to hide it anymore. They hate the country, everything it was, is, or hopes to be. They want it to be stripped down to nothing and absorbed into a one world government. They've been paid to think that way.
That's true.
Those who have eyes to see, let them see. The refusal to vote is not viewed by Yahweh as a holy stand against evil. It is viewed as siding with evil. If you're so deceived that you actually believe to vote Republican is to vote for the lesser of two evils, well, how in the world does not voting make any sense? You see what I'm saying? If you say, well, the Republicans are just voting for the lesser of two evils, so I'm not going to vote. That doesn't make any sense. If that's only two choices you've got, choose the lesser.
Yes.
I've got blatant evil and I got the lesser. I'm going to choose the lesser.
Yes.
If that were even true. It's not, but even if that were true, why wouldn't you vote for the lesser? I warn all who will hear me, if people continue to vote Democrat, their right to choose anything will soon be taken away.
That's true.
You will then either have to choose to fight or compromise. And if you're too spineless to vote, I'm certain in that day you will choose to comply and compromise instead of fight. Verse 22, then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I, only remain a prophet of Yahweh. That's because Jezebel's killed the rest of them. There's 100 others in hiding, we were told. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. See, that's what happens when you allow the wicked to rule. The true prophets of Yahweh are being eliminated. Verse 23, let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, lay it on wood, put no fire under. I'll dress the other bullock, lay it on wood, and put no fire under. Call ye on the name of your Elohim, I'll call on the name of Yahweh, and the Elohim that answers by fire, let him be Elohim. And the people answered and said, it's well spoken. Okay, we'll go along with that. Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourself, dress it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your Elohims, but put no fire under. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered, and they leaped upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry loud. Y'all need to talk louder. For he is a Elohim. Either he's talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or perhaps he's asleep and needs to be awakened. Y'all need to cry louder. There goes Elijah being nice again. Making fun of them. They cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lances till the blood gushed out upon them. It came to pass when midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the offering. Notice that. They prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elias said unto the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of Yahweh that was broken down. And Eliah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, upon whom the word of Yahweh came, saying, Israel shall be your name. He told them what he's going to do. But notice all the things he's doing before he did that. He took the time to rebuild the altar. He took the time to find 12 stones and to stack them up because it had significance. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of Yahweh. He took the time to build a proper altar. And he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. Took the time to dig a ditch. And he put the wood in order. Didn't just throw it on there. He stacked it in order. You see that? He cut the bullock in pieces, laid him on the wood, and said, fill 4 barrels with water, pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. And he said, do it the second time. And they did it the second time. And he said, do it the third time. And they did it the third time. And the water ran about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. Nothing he's doing makes sense to those who weren't seeing what he was seeing, hearing what he was hearing, and knowing what he knew. Nothing he did made sense to them. But he moved methodically, doing what he knew he had to do, because he saw things they couldn't see, heard things they couldn't hear, knew things they didn't know. Trump may seem harsh, and you may wish he'd explain more, but he cannot, because to do so would be to expose himself to those who wish him dead. Are you not paying attention of what's happened while he's been president? Hundreds of abducted children are being rescued, which has never happened before. Why? Because others were complicit with it, that's why.
That's true.
Are you not paying attention? Hollywood elites are running scared because their perverted ways are being exposed.
Yes.
Are you not paying attention? Obama is out stumping for Biden. When has that ever happened before, that a former president goes on the campaign trail? Politicians know that Trump is about to expose their wicked, unlawful ways, their treachery, and they're running scared. Epstein and those associated with him are being taken out. The enemies of America are now standing quietly because they know that their hostility will be met with hostility. So they've quietened down. Trade deals are being made that benefit us all.
Yes.
He's not explaining everything he's doing, but trust me, he sees things we can't see. He knows things we don't know. He hears things that we don't hear. He is working in a way that is methodical. Yep. And it's for our benefit. Mm-hmm. It may sometimes look like Trump's just pouring water where he's supposed to be starting a fire. True. And it looks stupid. But we don't see what he sees. We don't hear what he hears. We don't know what he knows. All we can do is what they did. Trust him and do what he asks. Yes. They just trusted Elijah and did what he said. It came to pass, verse 36, at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. I told you to note that earlier. There is a time. Yahweh works in specified times.
Yeah. It's true.
And Elijah understood that. He didn't get in a hurry because he's moving in unison with Yahweh. There were things to do before Yahweh could do what he was going to do. No need to get in a hurry. Let's repair the altar. Let's find the stones. Let's rebuild the altar. Let's pour out, stack the wood up in order. Let's pour water. Let's dig a trench because the time is coming. He understood there was a time for that evening sacrifice. We may wish that there are those who unrealistically had wished, I think, that Trump would have fixed everything the first 6 months he was in office. But there is timing necessary to take care of everything that has to be taken care of. Elijah the prophet came near and said, Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are Elohim in Israel, and that I am your servant, that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O Yahweh, hear me, that this people may know that you are Yahweh, Elohim, and that you have turned their hearts back again. That's all he said. Wow. Then the fire of Yahweh fell, consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and they said, Yahweh, He is Elohim. Yahweh, He is the Elohim. And Elijah said unto them, it's not enough. It's not enough for you to now to acknowledge Yahweh's Elohim. There's something else that has to be done. Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook of Kishon and slew them there. We sometimes forget that we have enemies we have to resist. Let me clarify that before I close. The nonsense that's being taught today is that we have to walk in love. We have to walk in love. You just got to be loving. And it's a perversion of what Yeshua said. What Yeshua said is love your enemies. Love who? Your enemies. There is the supposition you're going to have enemies. An enemy is somebody that resists you with every fiber of your being and everything you stand for. And Yeshua is telling you to recognize them not as a friend, not as a brother, but as an enemy. Don't give in to them with hate and begin to allow their hate to become your hate. You never are moved or motivated by hate, but at the same time you recognize they're an enemy of you and your family and everything you hold dear, and you plant your feet and say, no!
Right.
I will not tolerate you or the agendas you have.
Amen.
Amen.
To not vote is absolute absurdity and a violation of everything that's holy and good. Ted Cruz stated that in the last election, 54 million evangelical Christians stayed home. He said if Christians will simply show up and vote, our values will turn this country around. I don't know how this number's calculated, but I will say that it does not surprise me that it's that high. Apathy and hyper-spiritualism plague the evangelical world. Evil men do good because good men are doing nothing.
Amen.
I want to close today with a quote from the founder of Home Depot that you may have also seen on social media platforms. Listen to this. An interview with Bernie Marcus, founder of Home Depot, was asked, why are you voting for Trump? He's rough, he's rude, he's aggressive, completely unpresidential. I don't understand. Bernie smiled and quietly replied, well, you know, I thought about General Patton. He used coarse language, his manners weren't pleasing to the ladies, and his language sure offended a lot of Christians. But we needed him to win a war.
Right.
Trump is our General Patton, and we're in a war that we have to win. I believe then, and I believe even more strongly now, that our battle is against powers and principalities. And in a war between good and evil, we've seen the demons loosed and the masks have come off. Evil forces aren't even pretending to be civil anymore. I am on my knees for my children and grandchildren. I'm daily interceding in prayer for my beloved country, my cherished Christian heritage, and so much more. With all due respect and appreciation for the kind, well-spoken orators, it's time to wake up and welcome our General Patton, he said. The lesser of two evils. I don't believe that to be true, but even if that is the only choice that you have, you still have to choose.
Amen.
Choose the lesser. Never allow that which is pure evil to triumph because you were too spiritual to even dare to vote. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. As I put His name upon you, so shall He Himself bless you.